They laugh at you. You're excluded, overlooked, again and again. But this time you rise. Not because they changed, but because you did. The world won't give you space. You're the one who has to take yours. Maybe you've been ignored. Too many times. Closed doors. Silence. Too many doubts. But even so, you're still here. And that already says a lot. Because sometimes, the greatest transformation in your life doesn't begin with an external event, but with a quiet, almost invisible decision. From now on, I'll act as someone who was born to win. The Stoics understood this centuries before modern psychology. Epictetus said, "We can't control what happens outside, but we have full control over how we position ourselves within. And how you position yourself changes everything." How long are you still going to wait? You could spend years waiting for the perfect moment, waiting to feel secure, validated, clear. But the right time doesn't exist. What exists is the choice to begin before you feel ready. And when you start acting as if you're already the best, something powerful happens. Your mind stops asking for permission. Your posture shifts. Your focus sharpens. You no longer crawl for validation. You begin carving your own path. The world steps on those who shrink, but respects those who rise with presence. You don't need to be at the top to move like you belong there. You don't need recognition to recognize yourself. This isn't an invitation to arrogance or a role to perform. It's a call to your real greatness, the one that's not shining yet, but beating inside you, smothered by delay. You don't need to be perfect to act with excellence. You just need to stop asking for permission to be who you already are. Marcus Aurelius ruled with humility, but also with firmness, not because he thought he was superior, but because he understood the weight of his own example. True confidence doesn't make noise. It moves in silence, with dignity, with direction. Today, you'll learn exactly that. How to act like the best, even before the world sees it. How to wear confidence not as a disguise, but as stoic armor. Because the sooner you move like someone who deserves respect, the faster the world will learn to respect you. And when you begin to truly respect yourself, external circumstances stop mattering so much. Remember, habit builds identity, and every identity begins with a gesture, a choice, a conscious repetition. Act like the best, not to be admired, but to never abandon yourself again. Let's begin. Everything begins with a decision, not a grand, loud, or visible one, but the kind no one sees. The one that happens when you're alone, tired, and still say to yourself, "Today, I will show up as the best version of who I could be." That's the turning point. Not when the world changes, but when you change your internal standard. The Stoics knew true transformation doesn't begin with external victories, but with internal, irreversible choices. Epictetus said, "What happens to you doesn't matter. What matters is how you choose to respond." And choosing takes courage. The courage to stop living as someone who waits, to stop walking as someone who hides, to stop depending on maybe, and start living from now. Because as long as you act small, the world will treat you that way. The way you walk changes how others see you. But more importantly, it changes how you see yourself. Acting like the best isn't pretending. It's committing to a new level of awareness. It's waking up every day with a new internal code. I act as someone who lives up to what they want. I act as someone who already knows their worth. That choice changes everything. It changes your language, your body, your relationship with challenges. You stop asking, "Can I do it?" and start asking, "What would the version of me who can do right now?" You begin to act with more intention. You choose your words with clarity. You sit with firmness. You walk into rooms with presence. The body follows the mind, and the mind follows the decision. Marcus Aurelius journaled every day to remember who he needed to be, even as emperor, because even the strongest need to reaffirm their path. You are not defined by what you feel. You are defined by what you choose despite what you feel. The decision to be the best isn't about ego. It's about focus. It's about honoring your own existence. It's about acting with dignity, even when no one is watching. You don't need the world to believe in you. You need you to believe. And for that, words aren't enough. Only decisions are. Every day, in silence, the world asks, "Who are you choosing to be right now?" And your answer shows in your behavior. You don't need to feel ready. You need to move with intention, even when uncertain. How many chances have you missed? Because you waited to be more prepared. Because you thought, Now's not the time. But when does that time ever arrive? When will you finally feel worthy? The answer is simple. Almost never. Because the feeling of being ready doesn't come before action. It comes after. After you act with courage. After you face the moment. After your body teaches your mind that you're more capable than you imagined. The Stoics called this virtuous action, doing what must be done, regardless of how you feel. Excellence doesn't wait for emotional permission. It demands movement. You want to build confidence? Act before confidence. You want to feel capable? Step into the arena before certainty. That's how the greatest grow, not by waiting for internal validation, but by creating it through action. Marcus Aurelius didn't journal to convince himself he was enough. He journaled to remind himself that excellence is a present act, not a future condition. Don't wait for your soul to be clean to begin walking. Start walking, and it cleanses along the way. You want to act like the best? Then act as if you are, right now. Wear the presence. Stand in the posture. Speak with clarity. Decide with firmness, even if your voice shakes, because the mind is trainable, and the body speaks its own language. The more you act like someone who's ready, the more your mind begins to believe. That's how you break the cycle of insecurity. With exposure, with movement, with repetition. Acting like the best isn't arrogance. It's emotional discipline. It's refusing to be paralyzed by what's missing. It's doing your best with what you have, and growing it, one day at a time. Most people wait to feel safe before they show up. But the Stoics knew, if you wait for perfect courage, you'll die waiting. Courage comes on the second step, the third, the eighth, never the first. And if you stumble, that's okay. Stumbling while moving is far more noble than standing still in fear. Don't wait for the red carpet. Don't wait for perfect bravery. Don't wait for the right day. The best version of you begins the moment you stop waiting. That's the breaking point, not between failure and success, but between stagnation and motion, between hiding and showing up. Today, exactly as you are, but with your head held high and the firm decision to rise with every step. Acting like the best doesn't mean thinking you're better than others. It means refusing to live below your own potential. Many people confuse confidence with arrogance, but they're opposites. Confidence is quiet. Arrogance is loud. Confidence builds. Arrogance constantly needs maintenance. Through comparison, conflict, and performance. The arrogant person needs to bring others down to feel tall. The confident one has nothing to prove. They simply are. They know what they carry, and therefore, they carry it in peace. Real strength doesn't shout. It fills the space in silence. Confidence doesn't raise its voice. It raises the standard quietly. It's easy to get lost in a character of superiority, to fake posture, speak loudly, act with artificial authority. But true confidence doesn't come from tone. It comes from coherence. You can speak softly and still be respected. You can be humble and still be seen as someone steady and unshakable. The Stoics called this integrity. When what you think, feel, and do are one. No masks, no need to perform, just real presence. When you act in alignment, you become impossible to ignore. Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man of his time, and still, he wrote daily about humility, self-control, and respecting those less fortunate. He didn't need to assert himself. His life spoke for him, and that's what you're aiming for. Not an image, but an identity built from the inside out. Acting like the best is looking in the mirror and knowing, I'm not perfect, but I'm whole. I'm not the greatest, but I'm fully present. Arrogance fears failure. Confidence embraces it as part of growth. Arrogance builds a shell. Confidence is grounded in truth. If you're afraid of looking arrogant while growing, remember, arrogance is displayed. Confidence is felt. You don't need to explain yourself. Just live aligned with what you believe in, with clarity, purpose, and humility. You're not better than anyone, but you're better than what you've been accepting from yourself. And that's why acting like the best isn't about rising above others. It's about finally rising to your own standard. Arrogance seeks applause. Confidence grows roots. Arrogance demands attention. Confidence earns respect, even in silence. Stoic confidence withstands criticism because it wasn't built from comparison, but from daily construction. Those who are truly confident don't need to dominate. They just need to exist with presence, without shrinking, without exaggerating, without begging to be seen. And if you want to build that kind of confidence, it doesn't come from speeches. It comes from practice, repeated, daily, intentional. You don't become confident by reading about confidence. You become confident by practicing. Practice turns effort into nature, and nature into identity. That's why the Stoics didn't care about appearances. They cared about consistency. They knew excellence doesn't come from flashes of brilliance, but from hundreds of quiet choices made every single day. Seneca said, "We become what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Think about it. You want to become disciplined? Practice discipline, even in the small things. You want to become calm? Respond with calm, even when everything inside you screams the opposite. You want to act like the best? Then act, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when it feels fake, because at first it always does. At first it feels forced. You walk like you're wearing a heavy suit of armor, but with each repetition, it adjusts to your shape. And before you realize it, what once felt like effort becomes your natural stance. That's how identity changes, not with motivation, but with repetition. Your body adapts. Your mind follows. Insecurity begins to lose its voice. You've seen someone start off timid, unsure, and months later become calm, clear, and grounded. That's not magic. That's habit. That's constant practice. That's philosophy turned into muscle. The Stoics were soul trainers. They knew the true self isn't born ready. It's forged, and forging hurts. It requires friction. It requires discomfort. It requires patience. But what comes out of that isn't fragile. It doesn't depend on praise. It doesn't need perfect conditions. It's a confidence that grows from the inside and stands through any storm. You want to change your identity? Then start acting like someone who already owns it. Even if it feels like a mask at first, practice removes the mask and reveals the face that was always underneath. You can repeat a lie until it feels true, but you can also repeat a virtue until it becomes real. The same mind that taught you to hide can be retrained to hold itself upright. This isn't theory. It's biology. It's neuroplasticity applied through ancient wisdom. It's rewriting who you are, not with ideas, but with the repetition of intentional choices. And maybe, at first, you're just imitating, pretending. But if you're going to pretend, then pretend to be your highest self. Because every act done with intention leaves marks, and those marks eventually become sacred scars, signs that you battled your former self and won. Acting like the best doesn't mean ignoring your flaws. It means having the courage to face them without running. Most people avoid their weaknesses. They hide them, excuse them, distract themselves from them, because it hurts to see where we're still fragile. But the Stoics saw it differently. To them, weakness was not shame. It was raw material. You cannot strengthen what you refuse to see. And that's why true growth begins, where denial ends. Epictetus taught that every limitation is a disguised opportunity, a test for the soul, a blind spot waiting for light. But only those with courage look it in the eye, without drama, without self-deception, just presence and the intention to improve. You can keep repeating, "I'm just not good at this. I've always been this way." But that changes nothing, because what defines you is not what you lack, but what you do with what you lack. Weakness is not a sentence. It's an invitation to practice. The Stoic doesn't pretend to be flawless. They just refuse to be ruled by their flaws. They write, they reflect, they review each day with brutal honesty. And instead of shame, they apply more precision tomorrow. Marcus Aurelius, at the height of power, still wrote down his most personal failures, not to punish himself, but to free himself. Because only those who recognize their own shadow can walk without tripping over it. You don't need to be perfect to be strong. You need to be honest. Stoic courage isn't about never falling. It's about refusing to disappear after the fall. When you ignore weakness, it grows in the dark. It seeps into your habits, your relationships, your decisions. But when you bring light to it, it becomes shapeable, trainable, overcomable. And what was once your weakest point becomes your most sacred training ground. You want to act like the best? Then include this in your standard. Be someone who doesn't look away from their own reflection. Be someone who faces the truth and doesn't flinch. You will mess up. You will get frustrated. You will retreat sometimes. But the difference between the proud and the wise is that the wise use failure as fuel. The proud use failure as a shield. There is nothing stronger than someone who knows where they still need to grow and keeps growing. That's real Stoicism, not some unreachable ideal, but a daily practice of realistic refinement. Acting like the best isn't about being invincible. It's about becoming unstoppable, because you're no longer afraid to begin again. You made it this far, and that already says a lot about you. In this video, you learn that acting like the best is not about ego or vanity. It's about inner decision, daily discipline, and emotional courage. You've seen that. True confidence begins with a choice. Excellence is born before readiness ever arrives. The best carry themselves with quiet presence. Repetition shapes identity, and even your weaknesses can become strength. But none of this matters if you go back to your routine and treat this video like just another piece of content. Because it's not. This is a call, a reminder that you don't need to be perfect, but you need to be present, responsible, firm, not because the world expects it, but because you know it's time to expect more from yourself. Acting like the best isn't about impressing anyone. It's about ending self-sabotage. It's about stopping the cycle of endless preparation and stepping into real transformation. So here's the challenge. For the next 7 days, wake up with one sentence in your mind. Today, I act as the person I'm already becoming. Say it to yourself when you wake up, before you get out of bed, before you speak to anyone, before your first decision of the day. Act like the best, no matter where you are, no matter who's watching, no matter if you still doubt. Posture, presence, purpose. If you fail, reset. If you fall, rise with more strength. If you trip, correct with humility. But don't go back to the version of you that settled. You've outgrown that version. And if you want to solidify this commitment, write in the comments. For the next 7 days, I'll act as the best version of myself. This isn't about likes. It's about identity. It's about quiet responsibility. It's about no longer living as a passive consumer, but moving through life as someone who transforms from within. You no longer need to hide behind what you lacked. You no longer need to wait for permission. You already know what needs to be done. And now it's time to do it. If this message spoke to you, share it with someone who's ready to rise. Like the video. Subscribe for more Stoic reflections like this one. You don't need to announce your greatness. You just need to walk in it. The world doesn't have to believe in you, but you do. Because when you truly believe, you carry yourself differently. And when your presence shifts, the world has no choice but to respond. I'll see you tomorrow with another Stoic principle. For those who've chosen to live deeply, firmly, and free, will you wait to be chosen? Or will you rise as if you already are?